Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is August 3rd, 2022. The time is 7:32 p.m. This is the Ridgewood Village Council Public Workshop. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law of a schedule including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Councilwoman Perrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Reynolds.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Seaton.
Here.
Councilman Vagianos.
Here.
And Mayor Knudsen.
Here. Please stand for the flag salute. Please join us in a moment of silence for all of our men and women serving our nation, our first responders, and in memory of Ridgewood resident Avon Morgan, a Bergen County assistant prosecutor who passed tragically this week. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family. Thank you. With that, we will go to public comments, not to exceed 3 minutes per person for a total of 40 minutes. Please remember to state your name and address for the record.
Hi, good evening. Ann Burton Walsh, 112 South Irving Street. Good to see you all. I'd like to follow up on the issue regarding trees versus sidewalks. We need and want to maintain a network of safe sidewalks, but at the same time preserve healthy, mature shade trees, as stated in our master plan and new tree ordinance. Residents already assume the cost of repairing sidewalks adjacent to their property, and in many cases, satisfying both the goals of safe sidewalks and tree canopy means that extra costly masonry is needed to create a round out around the roots or a bump up or ramp over the roots of the tree, where the village arborist has determined that grinding the roots for a level sidewalk will kill or destabilize the tree. The problem is that many residents cannot or will not opt for this extra masonry on top of the already high cost of replacing sidewalk slabs, in which case it's current village policy that the tree, despite its health and maturity and the decades or century plus it has taken to grow, must be taken down. This is not a good result because the village is then spending taxpayer dollars to 1, cut down a healthy, mature shade tree, including stump grinding, 2, cover the cost of police presence, and 3, install a much smaller tree, which is not a good substitute for a shade tree that provides shade right now. And the total of these removal and replanting costs is, by my calculation, as much as, if not more, than the quotes that our neighbors have been getting for the extra masonry to go over or around the roots. One quote was $900 for a cement ramp over the roots on South Irving Street. So I'd first like to request a moratorium on removing any healthy, mature trees in the village where the fate of the tree depends on the decision of a homeowner as to whether to pay for the extra masonry. And then secondly, I'm requesting a resolution by the council that some part of the capital budget allocated to cutting down and replanting trees be used to preserve these trees instead. I think this would make sense because then we would not be spending as much as or possibly more money from tree-related budgets to eliminate them and replace them with something inferior in terms of shade, beauty, property-enhancing value, and carbon dioxide uptake. And the onus of the extra payment to preserve a municipal tree from which we all benefit should not be on the current or future homeowner in the form of a lien or any other form, because the homeowners at affected properties are already paying for the sidewalk to be repaired. And I understand that the funds for the extra masonry are not expressly provided for in the 2022 budget, but I think this might be a matter of wording. It seems that the funds exist in the tree-related budgets to preserve trees at the same or a fraction of the cost.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Nancy Brennan Hill, 136 Doremus Avenue, Ridgewood. I'd like to say I agree with that very reasoned approach to preserving trees. To me, it's very simple. They're a village asset, so it shouldn't be up to an arbitrary decision of a resident as to whether they can or cannot afford to do the masonry required. We should be taking care of that as part of the village budget, I believe.
Thank you.
Good evening. Catherine Schmidt, 123, excuse me, South Irving Street. I love trees and I love the sidewalks throughout our village, and I especially love the combination of walking down our tree-covered streets.
Catherine, I'm sorry, could you just pull that microphone down just a little? Yeah,
okay.
That's better. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
But as Ann mentioned, it seems like we're coming to a point where the two are colliding, literally, as wonderful, full, mature shade trees are doing their thing, kicking up the sidewalks and demanding their space. So, as Ann mentioned, the result is that homeowners need to bear an even greater cost for installing sidewalks that work around the trees, or the trees get cut down. I'd like to introduce a couple other ideas that, if they don't at least figuratively get on the agenda today, I think they're certainly going to be here in the next 5 to 10 years. And one is to think about how we construct our sidewalks by looking into different technologies like rubberized sidewalks. Mayor Knudsen, I know that very coincidentally, you and I had a conversation recently, and that you raised this concept before, so I was glad that it was something the village might consider, just like cities like Charlotte, Kansas City, Vancouver, Calgary are doing. These are all much bigger cities than we are, but that's because I did a real quick Google search, and that's what came up. I'm sure that we'll find other cities that are more like us. So my husband and I have done a little bit of research on this, and right now, unfortunately, any of the providers that we were able to identify only do big jobs. They don't want to respond to a one-off homeowner for 3 slabs or 4 slabs. But if this is an issue that the village is and will be facing on a broader scale as our shade trees do what we want, get bigger, cast more shade, then it would be helpful if the village, among the other gazillion things that I know you're already doing, could begin to help us research how we could get some preferred vendors who might see Ridgewood as a good place to operate, because though the jobs are small, there might be many of them. And maybe there's even an opportunity here for shared services with other communities that value tree-lined streets. The other element I'd just like to mention is that I think we need to use our institutional knowledge even better. I know the village departments have a lot of knowledge, and they've been very helpful to me in guiding solutions. But if the final decision on how to repair the sidewalk is left to the homeowners without village consultation, then the homeowners might decide to cut down the trees when other solutions could be available. As an example, if I did not make a point of going out there and telling my contractor to stop what he was doing until I brought the village in, I'm not sure where we would have ended up. I think that residents should be told in the letter that they receive that they need to talk to the town before finalizing their decisions. I know it's more work, but I think it's good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Good evening, Boyd A. Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I see on the agenda tonight you have an item to discuss a possible ordinance for the smart controllers. I was here a few weeks ago and I talked about that. I do think that's a good idea. As I mentioned when I was here previously, it seems as though the people who have smart controllers are entitled to water much, much more often than those of us who do not have smart controllers. I don't understand that at all. That, to me, doesn't speak to water preservation. I am restricted to watering on, I guess, Wednesdays and Sundays from a certain period of time. The people in my neighborhood who have smart controllers seem to water at any time they want, any time of the day, any day of the week. I appreciate that Councilwoman Reynolds followed up and called the water department, and I think she did find out that there is an exemption, and that exemption entitles people to water almost 10 hours a day if they have a smart controller. I do not understand that. I do not understand how that preserves water. People can bypass the system. It makes enforcement difficult because when you drive down the street, how do you know who has a smart controller and who doesn't? I understand that the water department has some guidelines that indicate that you have to register and have to have a sign up in your window of your home However, the ordinance that's currently on the books doesn't speak to that at all. The only thing the ordinance says is that the water department can grant an exemption to people who have a smart controller. It does not specify what that exemption is, and it does not specify what the rules are regarding registration and display of the permit. So therefore, people who are in violation cannot be fined because there's no regulation to start with. Again, don't know why this is in place, because it certainly does not preserve water when, if you have a smart controller, you can water much, much, much more often than people who don't. I see Mr. Calby is here. Maybe Mr. Calby is going to be asked to explain that later on. I will be sitting at the edge of my seat waiting for that explanation. With respect to the trees that are now being taken down in town due to the sidewalks, or the village due to sidewalks, I fail to understand how that all happened. Rumor has it that somebody anonymously sent an email to the Department of Engineering specifying almost 200 addresses where sidewalks were in violation. And the village acted on an anonymous email to start this whole sidewalk replacement and tree replacement project. When I heard that, I'm thinking, well, that to me sounds like a contractor who wanted to make some money. And why would we jump on an anonymous email like that without doing some investigation as to whether somebody had an ulterior motive as to why they sent that email? Certainly this wasn't a resident who was walking around the village with their dog that spotted 200 properties and wrote them all down.
Thank you, Boyd.
A follow-up is needed on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stefan Kahanda Linigay. I live on Liberty Street, 132.
Wait, okay.
132 Liberty.
Okay, hang
Still
on.
getting used to it. I just moved. What do you need?
Just make sure you're speaking into that microphone loud and clear so we can all hear you.
Sure. Is that better?
You can pull it towards you, too.
Okay, I can walk towards it as well, I think.
That's good.
Is that
Okay,
good?
name and address for
Okay.
the record and go
Yes.
ahead.
Sorry, Stefan Kahanda Linigay. I'm at 132 Liberty Street. I'm here to support my friends and neighbors on South Irving Street. There's several trees that are slated for removal. The prior speaker just alluded to some process that perhaps wasn't transparent in picking these trees. I just wanted to voice my support of that concern as well. What I find deeply troubling really about the trees, though, is that it has taken, some of these trees are, appear to me, I'm not an expert, but 50 years or so old. And the process of which is determined to cut these things down seems to be quite speedy and non-transparent. And if you make a mistake, that's a 50-year-old thing that can't easily be replaced. It can't be just fixed with a little bit of tape here or some tar there. So these are considerations that should be taken more seriously, and more time should, I think, be granted for investigation to tree replacement and the economics behind that. As I understand it, it takes a lot of money to remove the trees, and it could take less money just to take care of them as is. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh.
Good evening. Oh, I'm significantly shorter. It's nice to see you all. My name is Beth Gold-Cruller. I'm here representing the Green Ridgewood Eager Subcommittee, and I know you're considering proposals received for our Eager project. Moving forward with the Eager
Could you just state
project.
your name and address, please?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
okay.
My name is Beth Gold-Cruller. I reside at 719 Belmont Road. As far as the Eager project, encouraging alternative green energy for Ridgewood, the objective is to purchase electricity that represents a higher percentage of renewably sourced energy than what PSEG currently offers most customers. And this will also allow Village Council to solicit bids from and contract with third-party electricity suppliers on behalf of our town to aggregate our demand into one overall need, hopefully lowering the price that we pay for electricity as well. which, as we know in these times, is a concern for many people. Since energy supply is such a complicated industry, we need professional advice to include options for a greener product, not just for a lower price product, but to see if there's any greener products out there available for us. So neither the village nor its residents are obligated to pay such consultant. That being said, third-party suppliers will roll that fee into the price that we ultimately pay. So as you consider the bids that have come in, I know you're going to interview 2 alternatives. As far as these 2 alternatives, I just kind of want to boil down our concerns regarding these 2. Gable Associates Incorporated is one. As far as Gable goes, when you look at their bid, they include information around a bid day. That's part of their process. This is in order to enable us to capture a price in the market as quickly as possible so that we can secure that. So again, speaking on behalf of the subcommittee of Green Ridgewood, we want to understand how timely can the council approve this bid, because time is of the essence when you think about energy pricing. So just again, something to think about since this is a new process for all of us. In addition, I want to understand, I shouldn't say we want to understand where we would sit on the list of Gable's clients. Are we just another notch in their belt? What is our priority? I'm sure we'd be a great contract for them to secure, given the size of our community. We don't need to bucket our resources with other towns, as other towns have had to do in the past, just to get a good price. So consider where we are in their priority order. When we think about Good Energy LP, which is the additional provider we're considering, I think we should think about, in their bid on page 25, they talk about they're in the process of undergoing final negotiations to develop an opt-in program for generation of carbon offsets. This is supplemental to the aggregation, and this is at no cost to participants. This is something that is new, so I think we should kind of poke holes in that and see where they're at in that process, because when you think about it, of these 2 bids, a lot of the compelling things in the Good Energy the Good Energy LP bid align with our strategic initiatives for the town. So when we think about all of the work we've been doing around the master plan, when we think about climate actions that are going to lead to more sustainable opportunities for us as a town in the future, I think we should think about strategic alignment as a concern. Oh, is that my time?
Yes, that's
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Again, think about where we sit in the pecking order. Let's get a good price, and we need someone that's going to provide effective change management.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. With that, we are going to close public comments. And before we go to the manager's report, though, I have a couple of questions about the trees, because I think every time a tree comes down, I mean, I don't know about anybody else, to me, it's painful. It's just a travesty when we see trees come down. So to Mr. Loving's point, I guess the question is, was this all triggered by an anonymous email to engineering that suggested that all of these folks had to have sidewalk repair work, which I think we have to investigate? And secondly, can we put a pause on this until we resolve? I mean, I can't imagine that we are removing trees for sidewalk repairs, and I know it was just luck of the draw that I was on the phone with Catherine as the whole tree issue was happening, and I said, oh, well, I don't know why we don't do these rubberized sidewalks around the trees, because that's something Chris and I spoke about, I think in 2017. So I think that we have to look at these things and not have our trees just damaged or removed just because sidewalks need to be replaced. So can we put a pause on that for the moment?
Yeah, the ones specifically on South Irving are on pause. We traditionally have removed trees on Wednesday, and so whoever it was thought it was going to be this Wednesday. It was not going to be this Wednesday. It never was. But those particular ones are on pause. In addition, I could certainly, give the Parks Department the edict, shade tree, that, any healthy trees that would have to be removed shouldn't be. There are trees, however, that are out there that should be removed. Right. And so those we would continue to do, but the ones that are healthy and we're merely doing it because grinding the roots is going to destabilize it, we could put a pause on that.
Yeah, so I obviously, I think we all agree that if the trees are dead, we should take those out. Yeah. But, and just, I think, just to be clear on the rubberized sidewalks, we were investigating that. I think that everyone was looking into it, whether or not it was doable, and then if doable, we would do it as a pilot program before it comes back to Village Council, which is a win-win if it works. But I don't know where we're at with that, but if we're pausing everything, we're in a good place.
Right.
And does rubberized mean permeable? I mean, if it's a pervious surface, I'd be interested in that as well, for the reasons of stormwater runoff and that sort of thing.
So actually, years ago, we looked at, it was a result of some areas not being able to put in sidewalks or not having sidewalks, and whether or not, because of just the landscape and the limited area, whether or not just those kind of rubberized sidewalks were an option for safety. So it was something we were looking at, I think it was 2017, but never did anything with it. It was just kind of more internal. But I think it's a great option if we can do that for the, and save the trees and resolve that sidewalk issue. So, let's see where we're at.
Ms. Schmidt, if you have pictures of rubberized sidewalk, could you send that to all of the council? I've never seen it.
I sent Catherine all the materials. It just happened, she and I were on the phone, so I sent her the articles, I sent her the information, so I'll send whatever I
Okay.
Heather, I think that this is something that nobody wants to see a healthy tree removed.
Correct.
Under any circumstances. So I think that a moratorium for the moment until we can investigate this and figure out a better way. Perhaps we can have the engineering department look into the rubberized sidewalks, get us some good solid information, so that, because up until you said that, I'd never heard the term before. So we can learn about it, we can put it on an agenda, and we can figure out a better way than what I'm gathering is the current way, which is if the homeowner doesn't want to pay for the additional masonry, the tree comes down. So that is clearly not in anyone's desire or interest, and I think we all appreciate you bringing it to our attention. So Heather, perhaps we can go that route, have Chris look into this, bring it to us, and we can figure out a better alternative than we currently have.
Okay.
I just have a question, though, because I drove down South Irving today, and the sidewalks have already been removed. Is that correct? So we're kind of in a dangerous situation with school starting. Kids are going to be walking on those sidewalks. I don't want the trees removed, definitely not, but we got to figure something out fast.
I understand.
They are roped off.
Right. So anyway, I think that engineering was already looking into it, so if
They
we
are.
can just move this forward as quickly as possible so we can resolve it, it would be really great. Okay, with that, we'll go to the manager's report.
Sure. So I just want to mention nominating packets for Ridgewood residents who are registered voters and wish to run for and serve as Village of Ridgewood council members on the Ridgewood Village Council are available in the village clerk's office. The deadline for filing completed nominating petitions is September 6, 2022. This year there are 2 positions up for election with 4-year terms to serve on the nonpartisan village council. It will be voted on at the November 8th municipal election during the general election. The newly elected council members will be sworn in and take office in January of 2023. Current employment and volunteer opportunities are posted on the village website, which is www.ridgewoodnj.net. Green Ridgewood, Project Pride, and the Ridgewood Green Team Advisory Committee are currently looking for new members, and the deadline to apply for that is August 12, 2022. Please conserve water. We continue to have warm weather and very little rain, so it does put a strain on our water resources. Obviously, it's important for firefighting as well as just in general having water available. I do want to give you a brief update on the Shedler property work and then also the update on the Zabriskie Shedler house. The contractor for the fence, berm, irrigation, and trees should be resuming work by next week. The village has sent some revisions to the draft plan for the rest of the property to SHPO, and we're waiting for their comments and approval to move forward on another phase of the development of the property. On the Zabriskie Shedler house, contracts for the final part of the restoration of the house have been signed. A pre-construction meeting was held last week with Village of Ridgewood staff, Connolly and Hickey, the historical architects, and the contractor, and work should begin soon. I want to clear up some confusion. Apparently, some people are not sure about grading pool operation schedule because we had laid out a schedule through August 5th. I do want to let you know that grading pool will be open through Labor Day following the current hours. So it will not change from what it is now. And this information is also posted on the website. I do want to remind everyone that grading pool is now on the Recycle Coach app. Thanks to Mayor Newsom for suggesting it, and for our staff in Recreation for being able to implement it and send it out to everyone. If you are a member of the pool and you want these notifications, please opt in. If you only want recycling information and garbage pickup, do not opt in because you'll get a lot more notifications. There will be a movie on the beach at Graydon Pool this Friday, August 5th. It will be Sing 2. $5 per person, either a cash or check. The rain date is August 6th. The movie starts at dusk. Please bring a chair or blanket, and Water's Edge Cafe will be open until the movie starts. We are still looking for additional lifeguards. If anyone wishes to come and be a lifeguard, or they've found that we were paying more and you'd like to come from where you're currently a lifeguard, we'd welcome you. Pickleball and tennis memberships are available through Community Pass. The hours for both pickleball and tennis is currently 8 a.m. to dusk. There are some more Ridgewood mini camps that are taking place in August. There's still some openings in these camps. It includes skateboard summer camp, ultimate frisbee, digital photography and videography, garden arts, and again, sign up on Community Pass. Chamber of Commerce Ridgewood Sale Days is August 5th, 4th, 5th, and 6th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. This Saturday, August 6th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., a mini touchy truck display will take place at Van Ness Square along the park side, and then at the train station parking lot on the west side. Lots of village trucks will provide a close-up look and touch trucks in all sizes for all ages. Saturday will also have sidewalk chalk art activity, arts and crafts, and musical entertainment. Come and enjoy a staycation in Ridgewood. Music and Memorial Park at Van Ness Square will be presented on Saturday and Sunday nights during the summer months. The Ridgewood Guild has 2 more free movies in the park. Wednesday, August 10th at 8:30 is Clueless, and Wednesday, August 24th at 9 p.m. is All About Eve. The Ridgewood Guild sponsors Music in the Night, and they provide music in various locations on Friday nights through Labor Day in our central business district. The Guild also sponsors Art in the Park. This will also take place this Friday, August 5th. Pino's Palette provides the art that is for viewing and for sale. The Cashel Memorial Shell, their last performance is tomorrow night, August 4th at 8:30 p.m. It is free to the public, and please bring a chair or blanket. The senior bus actually provided free transportation to 5 of the Cashel Shell Tuesday night music performances. I just want to mention, the first night there were 2 riders on the bus. At the last one, there were 7, more than 7. So it was really well used. We hope next year to do the same, and hopefully we'll have 7 or more every single time. The Bergen County Utilities Authority is holding a recycling event for mobile paper shredding just until the truck fills, electronics and computers, unwanted medication. There are no commercial vehicles, no business or commercial waste. Bergen County residents only. ID is required. It's being held at Bergen Community College, right on Paramus Road in Paramus, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., rain or shine. Let me just mention something. Last week, there was a fire in one of our garbage trucks, and it was because someone had put a laptop computer in a bag, and they had picked it up and put it into the hopper, and when it took it up, it squished it, and it caught on fire. Luckily, our employees on the truck saw it, pulled off to a side street, dumped the load, and our fire department thankfully showed up almost immediately and put it out. So luckily we didn't damage the truck or the hopper. We were fortunate the fire department was quickly there as well. It didn't spread. I just want to urge people, please, go to these recycling events to get rid of your electronics. Do not put it in your regular garbage. It is so dangerous. If, it could have gone through that hopper into the cab. I mean, there's all sorts of things that could have happened if the fire department hadn't got there as quickly as they did. There could have been an issue with it spreading onto a person's lawn or to their car if it was parked. Please, I just urge you to dispose of your electronics at one of these recycling events. The farmers market is celebrating its 22nd anniversary, 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the west side of the train station parking lot through October or early November, and that's Sundays. Village Council upcoming meetings are broadcast live from the Village Hall courtroom. We're also on our website, channel 34 on FiOS. So August 10th is our public meeting, and then also September 14th is our public meeting, and then September 7th and September 28th are our public work sessions at 7:30 p.m. That's all I have.
Great. Before we move on, I just, as far as the recycle coach being used for Graydon and the push notifications, I just really have to give the shout out to Johanna Luttrell, because if not for that immediate outreach to the customer service for Recycle Coach, it would not have happened so quickly. So good job there. So Councilman Vagianos.
Thanks, Susan. I met with the Stigma-Free Committee on July 19th, and first of all, I want to thank them for getting together in the dead of summer. It was a very good turnout, and I have to tell you, these people are so excited about the work that they do. They sponsor all sorts of great events for our residents. In June, they sponsored a kids' COVID booster shot event, and they did it by having music under the stars and other things going on. So it was really, really nice event. In July, they had a Balance and Thrive event promoting good health for our residents at the library, and they're doing it again on November 15th. The health department has also applied for a new grant beginning in 2023, that will be starting in 2023, and it is for our emerging viruses that are, it seems we have a new one each week. This one is currently scheduled to address Lyme, West Nile virus, hepatitis B, COVID, and our newest friend, monkeypox. The police sponsored a food truck and are sponsoring a food truck and bouncy house on October 9th as a fundraiser for cancer research at Graydon North parking lot. Please put that on your schedule. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. And the health department, very excitingly, is going to be, they're going to start receiving grants that will continue, we believe, for many years as a result of the opioid settlement. The beginning of it is they will be getting a $9,000 grant to start, but it is anticipated that it will be a much more significant number going forward. So we're all excited about that, and we're all going to be figuring out how best to spend this money in our community. And finally, on November 3rd at 9 a.m., there will be a senior health and wellness fair. The details are on the health department's website. And that's all I have, Susan. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Councilwoman Perrin.
Thank you, Mayor. The Open Space Committee gave another of its park walks. This one was by Fran Bartow. She gave a tour of Graydon Pool. It was very educational in terms of the pool's history and how it and its operations. The next Open Space Park Walk is going to be September 24th, and that's going to be of Pleasant Park, and our guide will be Jim Bosler. That's Saturday, September 24th. The Central Business District Advisory Committee met for the first time in person since COVID started. It was also our first hybrid meeting. Our speaker was John Saracino, a local developer, and he told us about the results of the survey that was conducted at two of the properties that he developed, Noma and the Benjamin. And it was interesting, the results that turned up, like 75% of the respondents said that they eat and shop in downtown Ridgewood. So I found that very heartening. The CBDAC talked about the Chamber's suggestion that it would be helpful in assessing the pros and cons of pedestrian plaza by looking at parking data from this year, last year, and the CBDAC asked if we could go back as far as 2019. So I think that those revenues would be very helpful to do an analysis. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Reynolds?
Thank you, Mayor. The Planning Board met on July 19th. We had our reorganization meeting, and we appointed Steve Wellinghorst as our board attorney. The following board members were sworn in to continue their term. Mayor Knudsen, Class 1, John Young, Class 2, myself, Class 3, James Van Gore, Class 4, Richard Joel, Class 4, who is also our chairman, Melanie Hubin, Class 4, and Igor Laborsky, who is alternate number 1. Our conflict planner, Beth McManus, was there to discuss the Valley Hospital Affordable Housing Redevelopment Plan. I just want to make everybody aware this plan would only come into play if Valley Hospital ever decided to sell the property at North Van Deen, which at this point they have no plans to do so. John Barry was there from Higher Gruel. He came for a review of the master plan draft. We've actually hired John Barry as our new village planner because our previous village planner has retired. So since John is going to be at all the planning board meetings, we have a lot more flexibility, and we have moved the public meeting and vote for the master plan to September 20th. So hopefully many, many people can come and join us at that meeting. The master plan currently is with the committee, and everybody is reviewing it for typos and mistakes. It should be on the website soon. It will be announced for all to see, certainly in plenty of time before the September 20th meeting, but hopefully in the next week or so. The Project Pride Committee continues to give out the Sunflower Steak Awards. Every 2 weeks, 6 houses are chosen, and they receive the award. So if you're driving around and you see a little sunflower steak, you know that they received the award. We have so many residents that create beautiful gardens at their home. I really want to thank everybody for taking the time, planting. Even if your landscaper does it, doesn't matter. You're creating a beautiful landscape for everybody in Ridgewood to see, and we really appreciate that. I just have one question for Heather about the timeline on the berm. I know you said they're going to be restarting next week. I mean, I think the original time frame was it was going to be done in June, so could you tell us what
they are running late. The last I heard was that they were supposed to end now by September 28th. I believe there are penalties that will be assessed against the contractor. So that's all I had heard from Mr. Rudder-Sauser this week.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Someone was there working this morning, though. Someone was. Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing to report.
Okay, so that leaves me.
Easy.
All right. The Library Board of Trustees met last week. We continue to work through the details of the Peace Library lease. Additionally, the Library Board of Trustees discussed the option of the library renovation project being done in stages rather than one large construction project. And so we are now visiting different libraries and looking at their renovations, the time frame it took them to completion, and how they worked out doing it in those stages. So we're actively looking at that as a really good option. We do recognize that the needs have changed as time moves on, and some of the areas that we're really looking for and believe that could use improvement are the staircase on the main level, which is just not really user-friendly or not visible to most people, and teen rooms. So we're looking at it in stages, which will be a better outcome, we believe. Access met last week as well. Access is our community access network for our special needs community. And we are planning our Access Weekend for October 7th through October 9th. There will be a senior citizen event for special programming on current issues that many seniors grapple with. Children's concert, as always, featuring Marlene Pillow, who's just absolutely amazing. That would be on Saturday. The wonderful fashion show, if anyone has had the opportunity to view the fashion show. I know it's still on Zoom from the COVID days, but we're going to be, I think, a little bit more of Zoom and live, and so hopefully we'll get that done, and it'll be really exciting and fun. And our community fair in the library auditorium, and then, as always, we wrap up the weekend with a religious service done through Friends to Friends Community Church on Prospect. So it's a really, really exciting weekend, and we'll start sending our letters out, outreach, and publicizing that so everyone is aware. I encourage everyone to join us at Access Weekend, whether you're have a family member that's special needs or not. It's a really great opportunity to embrace our special needs community, and it's a really wonderful time as well because of our Ridgewood Commons, which is the special needs housing that opened up. We partnered with the United Way of Bergen County and Madeline Corporation in the village of Ridgewood, and it's just really a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to celebrate differences. Councilwoman Perrin and I attended the ribbon cutting of Stretch Lab. I think both of us get the award for being really good sports. So there's this map machine. I don't know, what is the address on that? It's closer. It's on a kind of diagonal. It's on this end of on Ridgewood Ave. Anyway, Stretch Lab is beautiful. They stretch you so that you have more flexibility, and they say actually you'll feel better. I don't really know much about professional flexologists, but I encourage everyone to stop in, take a look, and they have this interesting maps machine, and so you follow an avatar and do some moves, and they tell you where your trouble areas on your body would be. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I love to stretch. It's so good for relieving tension and for being more productive. So this was a really good addition to town.
It's a great addition, and again, I think that we were kind of really good sports about it. It could have been a little embarrassing, but it was fun. It's fascinating, and I encourage everyone to stop by Stretch Lab downtown Ridgewood. And I just want to say, I think that we are on a record number of ribbon cuttings in the central business district and around town. We have so many new businesses, and it's really just exciting and adds to the vibrancy of our historic central business district. So much excitement. And finally, I have one last question for the village manager. I've received numerous complaints, and I meant to raise this earlier, and I know I did speak or emailed with Chris on it when he was acting manager. Lots of complaints about Linwood Ave, and I think there was going to be some outreach to the county. The county has Linwood on its schedule for repaving. I believe that the village may have tried to repair some potholes, but it's just horrible. The condition of Linwood is absolutely horrific, and sadly, we have ambulances that do that run. So I'm wondering if we can just follow up and get out to the county and find out what the status is of that.
I will. We haven't gotten one yet, but we will.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
And I've also followed up on Franklin to find out when they're doing that paving, because that was going to be this year.
This summer.
Right, and they haven't responded to me yet, so I'll follow up on both of those.
Yeah, so just so everyone knows, we have that is that a shared agreement we had with the county for the Franklin Avenue corridor, and now we're waiting. So I know, as a matter of fact, I have a letter from someone about Linwood as well, and people are really getting upset about it, and rightfully so. It should get taken care of. All right, with that, we'll go to our water conservation, and hopefully Mr. Calby can address the concerns of Mr. Loving.
So I have Rich Calby here, the director of Ridgewood Water. All of you have the water conservation ordinance before you, and I think we can just concentrate on the smart controllers and how they work and what the exemptions might be.
Good evening, everybody. Hello. Sorry, it's been a while. Back.
Rich, in the summertime, we want you here at every meeting.
I'd like to be. Thank you. So I did review the comments from the meeting that I was not present for. And I've also kind of taken a look back at the ordinance, which was now 5 years ago, approved in 2017, believe it or not, for the smart controls and changes in the water restrictions for the village. So at that time, there were two major changes that were done as part of the ordinance. I don't know if many of you remember, we used to have 4 stages of restrictions. We used to start every year around April, May in stage 1, which allowed 3 days a week watering. We found that every year we wound up going to stage 2 immediately in June. That was 2 day a week. So we felt it was appropriate at the point 2017 to change the ordinance and make 2 day a week watering permanent. At the time, we researched a sustainable New Jersey model ordinance that was prepared by the state and Rutgers University. That ordinance had in it an outline of certain exemptions to help promote, the further restrictions of 2 day a week, and those include smart controllers. So we modeled the ordinance after that sustainable Jersey model, which included the time frames that were allowed for smart controllers, which are midnight to 10 a.m., which differ drastically, as were mentioned, from conventional in-ground sprinklers that are only allowed 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. All those requirements around a smart controller aren't codified in the ordinance for 2017. They're permit conditions. And thinking back to why we did it that way, I think at the time we felt like there might be a need to make changes in the future. So we felt permit conditions were the best way to go about that. Now, I don't know if legally permit conditions are an enforceable thing, that they have to be codified or not, but since then we've been going by that. And actually, in the past couple of years, we have caught some people with smart controls that have been watering outside their time frame, and they've given warnings or tickets for that. Looking at the comments that were made, in terms of getting a smart controller, right now, out of the 21,000 some odd accounts that we have for Ridgewood Water, 345 account holders have the smart controller permit. They have to come to our office, they fill out paperwork, provide us documentation, backup. We review that. We then either say yay or nay. If it's a nay, we tell them what else they need to provide. In most cases, they're eventually then granted a permit. Of those 345, 292 are in the village, the rest are in the other 3 communities. Once they're granted that approval, they're given a blue placard with white writing that says this property is watering smart. They're asked to put that placard in the front window or on a stick prominently in the front of the property. We do keep a database of the properties that are approved, so the signage isn't as important. We know who has an approval, who doesn't. Every year we require them to recertify that they're still following the regulations and watering smart. And that premise itself is the basic part of it. We assume by giving somebody this permit, giving them a sign to put on their property, that they're being honest in watering smart. And what was meant by that is the controller is programmed to water on the basis of weather or soil conditions. Now, if they're bypassing that and saying, I'm just going to turn it on every day, then they're not watering smart, regardless of if they got the permit or what the placard is. Now, we can't control that. We don't go into people's houses to look at their controllers. We only go out and monitor when people are watering and who has a permit. And we've been doing that since 2017, and there's been hundreds of summonses and warnings that have been given out on an annual basis. So, looking at the ordinance where it is today, I think it definitely warrants some changes, that I'd like to discuss. Definitely hear your comments as well. I hear what Mr. Loving's saying. As far as the smart controller itself, since 2017, we've been very flexible with homeowners. The state ordinance requires that it be programmed by a state-certified programmer. And Ms. Perrin will attest to this. We found there was only one in the state in 2017. So we knew that was going to be an onus on owners and impossible for them to comply. So we have allowed property owners to buy these and program them themselves. We try to be as flexible as possible to let people comply. And you can get a smart controller for as little as $200 or even less. There's a brand which I will not name that is available that could be readily installed by a homeowner. Most controllers that are in homes today are adaptable as well. They just need an additional module that then connects to your Wi-Fi, brings the weather pattern into the controller and tells it, oh, it's raining tomorrow, don't water. Or in the case like this year, and why more people with smart controllers are watering, it's been dry and hot. So, of course, people with smart controllers that have programmed them properly are going to be watering more because their system's saying, I haven't gotten rain, it's 100 degrees, so I'm watering more. Now, whether or not that's fair to the people that don't have it, that's something we could address by making it more restrictive. Maybe we put more restrictive hours on those with smart controllers, make them the same as people with conventional controllers, but I don't think we could ever control the amount of days because we want the controller to tell them when to water. So I know that's a lot at once. Maybe I'd like to hear from you first and maybe answer those questions, and that'll help kind of bring the rest of it, if that's okay.
Okay, so just a quick question. So the 200, you said 292 in Ridgewood have the smart controller, and they have to recertify every year. What's involved in recertifying?
So every like February and March before the spring, Assistant Don O'Malonic sends out an email to all the smart controller permit holders with a recertification form. It basically has a statement, and I'll read it. Thank you for watering smart. The 2021 conservation program was successful. As a result of your water saving commitment, 2021 summer demand was sustainable for Ridgewood water operations. In other words, we didn't go into further restrictions. To ensure that your water saving commitment continues, please complete and return the form below to recertify your system for 2022. By signing below, I attest that my smart controller system has not changed and agree to the smart controller permit conditions and requirements for smart irrigation control, and certify that my system has been programmed based on proper sprinkler head data, soil conditions, plant, and irrigation data. So again, another opportunity where we're having them sign and send back something that they're telling us, yes, I'm doing it the way you've told me to. If they're not, I can't control that. And it's a shame if people are doing that.
Right. Unfortunately, everybody's going to buck the system. I'm sorry. It's just human nature. Question. I don't know if you know. I think that the recommendation is for lawns to get 1 to 2 inches of rain a week. Is that
1 inch of watering.
1 inch of water. So do you have any idea how much water, if you're watering once a week with an underground sprinkler, twice a week, how much that is, measurement-wise?
It varies by the type of sprinkler head.
Okay.
Each type of head puts out a certain flow. So I couldn't give you a direct answer.
Okay.
And that's part of what's supposed to be programmed with the smart controller. If you have 12 zones, whoever's programming knows what flow each head puts out. They should program it based on that.
Okay. I mean, I would like to see a change. Anybody without a smart controller has 2 days a week. I think anybody with a smart controller, number one, we have to do the same hours, 3 a.m. to 7 a.m., and maybe give them a third day or a fourth day. I'm thinking no underground sprinkler system should ever be on a Monday, a Thursday, or Friday. So it's easy to enforce. You see something on Monday, Thursday, Friday, automatically, whether they have a smart controller or not, they're not watering when they're supposed to, because the people without the smart controller can water either Tuesday, Saturday, or Wednesday, Sunday. So those are the 4 days that I think we should try and keep for underground. The other 3, no. Because nobody needs to water 4 days a week, or more than 4 days a week. So that's my opinion.
I would agree with that. And also, let's make it part of the ordinance that when you have the placard, it must be visible from the street.
And we could,
And also, I think we need more enforcement, generally.
So right now, the enforcement we do is generally at night. And that's because during the day, everybody else is doing their regular jobs. During the day, if by chance during their duties, a water person or someone in engineering or code enforcement, they would write tickets. But nobody has the direct job of just doing water enforcement during the day. We pay people extra at night to go out because that's when the majority of people are doing it. And we do that in all 4 towns. Sorry.
I have a more basic question.
Hmm.
What is a smart controller, and how does it save water?
Okay, so smart controller is always the misconceived term because there are a lot of controllers out there that can be controlled with your cell phone, and people think that means smart. But the real term smart controller means a controller that is being controlled by other intelligence. It has programmed weather data, whether it's collected from the internet or programmed on a daily basis, or it has a soil sensor, a probe in the ground that's telling it it's wet or dry. It's programmed based on the different zones. Maybe part of the property is mostly shade. Maybe 2 zones get mostly sun. That's where the whole term smart controller is. It's a device that can be programmed to incorporate some or all of those things. The best case is to have all of them. But that requires extra expense, but at the minimum require weather control.
And how does this save water, or does it?
The idea is when it's programmed, it's supposed to, on the basis of the weather, only water when it needs to. I don't know offhand. I'd have to do a comparison of property to property, to see where it's kind of landed. But based on the information that the state did and Rutgers did to create the model ordinance, they're saying smart controllers save a certain percentage of water over time.
So, and do we have an idea, generally speaking, what that percentage is over time?
I don't recall. I could get that number.
And so I guess my question is, given the issues that Boyd raised, is so the last few weeks when it's been 100 degrees, does that mean that this smart controller senses that it's dry and will water every day, from what you're saying?
It could be, yes.
So when it does, when it does that, as we would all want to do, given our lawns, how's that water efficient, or is it that it makes up for it in other times when it rains and it automatically does not come on? Is that the general idea?
General idea is averaging across the whole time frame that it's watering, whether it's from March to October or April and so forth.
So I gather that over the course of the long term, that droughts are taken into account, generally speaking.
It's the worst case.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, because we always go through some drought every X number of years, and so that's taken into account. And overall, even if it's watering every day, it is still saving water over the long term. Is that accurate?
Don't know. That's what I'd like to see as an example from the ones that we've done, at least locally here.
Can you find out? Because I don't want to, this is an excellent question that was raised, but I don't want to have a knee-jerk reaction and overreact when actually perhaps, and again, remember, I'm the guy who asked, what is it and how does it work? So I don't know anything about it. Perhaps at the end of the day, it does save water.
So I need to find people with smart controller permits that are adhering to the conditions. So if they're or volunteers,
Good luck.
please
Can
contact.
you find this out, or perhaps there's research out there that will answer this question? Because I think that's really what it comes down to. Because if it means that, oh, good, I've got a smart controller, it's been 100 degrees, I'm watering every day and I'm fine. If that doesn't actually save water in the long run,
I need to dig back into the Rutgers data that was the basis of the ordinance and see if it's even been revised since 5 years ago.
I think that might be our next step.
My thought is, no matter what, nobody should need to water 7 days a week. I'm sorry.
I agree.
It's a waste
Totally
of water.
agree.
No lawn needs that much water.
In theory, a smart controller prevents overwatering. So it must be doing some good, but I agree with
But you can
Councilwoman
override.
Reynolds.
You can override it. So
You can.
if somebody wants to
Right.
water every day, they can water every day. So it really, it's a catch-22.
So I have a question, because, and maybe I'm, just need a little refresher course here, which is perfectly fine. The issue of water conservation that Councilman Vagianos raised, saving water, water conservation, and what was the noise? What was that?
No, I think it's somebody has their phone on vibrate.
Oh, I was like weird. There's no little twilight zone there. So, again, Councilman Vagianos raises the issue of water conservation, saving water. But my understanding of you know where I'm going with this, because the water is the capacity to pump and how much is in that reserve. So there's two issues here. And I guess what I'm wondering is, when everyone went to automatic sprinklers and everyone turned theirs on at the same time, it was like the whole village put a straw in a cup, an 8-ounce cup of water, and everyone, and all the water was gone. That's what that is. And so the reason behind this kind of staggered staging is to ensure that the water pressure and capacity was there. So that was the first piece of this, and then water conservation, because there are times when we have plenty of water, but that's really not the issue. So if everyone were to go and get then smart controllers, we would have almost the same scenario as everyone putting their straw in the 8-ounce cup and sipping away, because everyone's smart controllers. So it's almost as if we've created the potential for the unintended consequence of going back to where we were. And so it makes me, for me, and I always had an issue with the smart controls, as you know, because I didn't think that anybody should have to hire someone if they could do the install themselves and have it work perfectly fine. I don't think people should ever have to pay someone to do a home improvement. It's not like you can pay, if you can do your own electricity, you can do your own plumbing, you get permits, you can do it yourself. But I think that there are two issues, and because this is the capacity issue, I believe that the same restriction should apply equally to everyone.
I mean, to Ms. Reynolds' suggestion, I think that's a great start.
Right.
And
Mr. Calby, is there any way you could get a sample of properties? Because we obviously do billing and we know what water usage is. So could we get a property and look at the water usage before they put in for their smart permit application, and look for the water usage after they went a year or two with the smart controller? Because again, the idea is it saves water over the long run, and that's why you're able to use it at some time. So if we have a spring where it rains almost every day, which happens a lot of times, you won't have your sprinkler system turn on, so you'll use like zero water while it's raining and your lawn is saturated. And all that water that you didn't use in the spring, maybe you hit a dry spell in the summer for a couple weeks or a month, and then you're using the same amount of water that you would even on restrictive days as other people are. But again, it's a drought, it's a dry situation. A lot of people are going to be using a lot of water in those instances, but we should have capacity built up from, some of the saved water, or I guess if everybody's using it at the same time, maybe not. But again, I guess over time it averages out. So if we can see that there's a significant conservation of water due to the water smart controllers, then that it actually does what the ordinance is supposed to do. It's called the Water Conservation Ordinance. Therefore, you're conserving water and you're doing a good thing.
Yeah,
So
and we should be able to do that.
If you could get those sample properties, because again, if people are just, and then maybe unscrupulous people could be out there and just apply for a permit and override it and just water as much as they want to. And then I guess you could take those sample properties and maybe see that there was no change in the water usage. And if people around them have a significant change, well, then maybe you have an idea that they either did something wrong, whether unintentionally or intentionally. And we can at least get a better idea to kind of see, maybe we have some restrictive days, but smart controllers could actually conserve water, because I think, again, averaging out over the long run, that's what the intention of the ordinance and the exemption was.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to know, since 2017, when this went into effect, has this ordinance resulted in water conservation? I don't know that getting a sampling of one property will really tell us that. I think we need more like a handful. We need several.
Just as a whole, since the ordinance was enacted, knock on wood, we haven't had to go beyond stage 2. I mean, prior to that, we went to stage 3 and 4.
That's
so
indicative.
Something's working.
That's indicative in and of itself.
We estimate about 50% of customers adhere to the 2-day-a-week. The other 50% don't. And this year we're going in all 4 towns at night. The other 3 towns we cannot hand out tickets yet, but we are posting warnings, and every week we send the administrators in the towns list of addresses that got warnings. I don't know if they've handed out tickets. We'd like to hand out the tickets. That way we just know that the enforcement's happening.
Do we know in Ridgewood, if somebody gets a ticket and they go to court, like what percentage have to pay the ticket? Like what is the judge doing?
I could find out. I know the initial summons is no court appearance. I believe it's the flat $85. But next summons does require appearance. And there have been customers with multiple summonses levied on their property every year.
Yeah, I'd like to know. I mean, just because you hear things and people say they get tickets all the time, they don't care. Charge them whatever you want, they don't care. I'd like to know if people are paying those tickets.
I've heard those stories even before this ordinance was put in effect, unfortunately.
So I think that the deputy mayor has a great idea here, and I think that Councilwoman Reynolds' plan is also great. So I think that's how we should proceed. I would wonder, though, if there would be any consideration to the smart controller still has to be installed by a service, correct?
No, we allow homeowners to do it on their own.
I didn't remember. Okay, good. That might be in my bonnet. Okay, good. Very good.
And also, I think we spoke about it, that the actual times are not in the ordinance. I think the times should be.
Yeah, everything's a permit condition. So if we're going to redo the ordinance, we could add the permit conditions in there to codify them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to find out more about, how these things work and what the research shows before we take any action. So perhaps we can, we can do a little research both on local houses, on what the Rutgers report says, and then and put this on the agenda for another work session so that we can make a better informed decision.
Yeah, we could get you a report, put together some charts, and then we could continue the discussion and
great,
and see if the suggestions are the way to go. And while I'm here, I just have to second what Heather said about the garbage truck, because I don't know if you recall, we lost an entire garbage truck many months ago for this very same thing. It was totaled. So please, no electronics in our garbage. Thank you.
I mean, so laptops, computers, obviously, cell phones, tablets, anything that people wouldn't normally think is not okay to throw it in the garbage?
Fuel sources.
Lawnmowers.
Yes.
We had a lawnmower.
Lawnmowers,
going,
yes.
And that caused a fire.
Do we really have to tell people not to throw their lawnmower in the garbage? I mean,
It's
come
happened.
on.
It's happened.
I believe you.
I
Well,
had
it's-
one go on, caught on fire right in front of my house, and it was, somebody up the street or around the corner put something in, and they pulled the crank, I guess, whatever that thing is, and you could just, it was actually a terrible, terrible smell, and the whole thing was on fire.
You know, we pick up some of these things on bulk day, but people leave fuel in them.
Yeah,
and that
fuel,
presents the
that's it.
problem.
So it goes, wow, blows up.
Insane.
Thank you.
While you're here, why don't we just do B3, which is parking in front of the new Ridgewood Water headquarters. We're just bringing this back one more time. So you originally discussed this in March, and then it came back again I'm just trying to see. Hold on one sec. Came back again in June.
Heather, I'm sorry, I wanted to ask a quick question going back to the garbage thing.
Oh, sure.
What are the fines for someone who threw the laptop in, throws the barbecue in? What is the fine when we find the person? Obviously, I guess we could reboot the laptop and find out whose it was, if possible, I don't know. But what are the fines?
In the case of the laptop, we don't know whose it was.
That's the thing. It's hard to identify.
But the prior case, we did
knew.
identify the homeowner, and I think we got a successful claim through insurance.
Okay.
Right.
And then on an insurance claim, but is there a violation of something?
Mr. Ruhauser gave them violations as well. I don't know what the fines were that were levied on the homeowner.
Yeah, I mean, we have to take it seriously because, someone is going to get hurt. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
somebody already did get hurt. Right? I mean, people have been hurt. So, okay.
All right,
Thank
so 8B3. So, as I said, Mr. Edestauser wrote 2 memos about the 3 parking spaces on North Maple Avenue in front of the new Ridgewood Water headquarters. The second memo confirms that there is ample room for these 3 parking spaces. There is ample room for cars to pass when cars are parked on North Maple in front of Village Hall, in fact. In addition, the entrance into the driveway will be one way from North Maple Avenue to the rear of the library parking lot. The building should be open by about mid-September, hopefully.
Yes.
And so we want to memorialize these parking spaces and the one-way entrance through an ordinance so that it can be enforced if necessary. The spaces in front will be 30-minute spaces Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., except holidays. So I just want to make sure we're okay to introduce this ordinance next week.
Can you park after 4:30? No.
Say it again, I'm sorry?
You said parking is 30 minutes, 8:30
30
to
to
4:30?
4:30.
So after 4:30, you cannot park there?
No, you can park longer than 30 minutes.
Oh, okay.
When I eyeball it, I just don't see that it looks like enough space to me. But I defer to Chris. The first accident that happens, I want to rescind the ordinance.
I feel similar to Pam. I mean, visually, it seems like it's going to be a problem. It seems that it's going to be a visual blockage, for lack of a better word. But Chris is the engineer, and if he says that it's adequate, then I think we do have to listen to him, but let's watch it.
It may be a traffic calming thing, but
I mean, parking definitely is. Anytime
Right.
you narrow a lane,
right.
you slow down cars. And I'd recommend parking there one day and just seeing for yourself. There was a car parked there today, actually.
I worry about the
Yes.
crosswalk by the library, because it seems like, people can be in the crosswalk, but somebody coming down North Maple is not going to see them if there are cars parked in front of the water department. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, I don't know what Mr. Rouser put in the memo, but the spots are spaced legally far enough away from the crosswalk.
Right.
Yeah, and you have the driveway there as well. You have to break it up.
And that crosswalk does have one of those blinking signs as well
Yes.
that people can hit before they cross.
How close are these spaces to the crosswalk?
I don't know the distance from the first one. It's over 20 feet because it's got the whole width of the driveway apron.
There's a legal distance that has to
Yeah.
be maintained between on-street parking and a crosswalk.
Yeah, and I thought that was like 50 feet. I don't know
I'm sure,
offhand.
I mean, I would think Chris would have considered that.
Obviously.
Yeah, so.
Didn't the planning board also review this, correct?
Yes.
My recollection
Yep.
is, and I don't know when we did that, but the planning board did acknowledge that there was sufficient space. Do I recall correctly?
I believe there was a discussion about it. And I apologize for the striping and signage going up.
Yeah, I
early.
know I was there, but I just don't remember there was some conversation about it, and even then, there was testimony by both the planner and the engineer that there was sufficient
yep.
space, correct?
Okay, so we'll move forward, and your concerns will be noted. The next one is the ordinance to restrict parking, thank you, Mr. Calby, on Morningside Road and California Street. This is in the area of Willard School. When vehicles are parked along the east curb of the northbound direction of Morningside as it approaches California Street, the vehicles obstruct the sight lines of the crossing guard and vehicles trying to make a left turn from California Street onto Morningside Road. He'd like to, Mr. Redesauer has recommended restricting parking along the northbound section of Morningside for the portion 120 feet south of the southerly curb line of California Street between the school inflow from 8 to 9 a.m. and 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. during the school year only, which is September 1st to June 30th. It will assist in creating better visibility for students entering and exiting Willard School. Is everyone okay with that?
Actually, I have a quick question. We have a resident who's been very engaged and instrumental in working on some improvements up there, and I had anticipated, I didn't realize Chris wouldn't be here, but having not to do with the specific parking, but my understanding was back in February, there was going to be a survey of Hamilton and Morningside neighbors regarding the offset intersection. And I'm wondering if you could just follow up with Chris on that so that we
Sure.
can see if there were any improvements being recommended. I think he told the resident actually went to CSAC. Yes. Okay, good. I should remember that. The resident went to CSAC, and that was February, and was advised it may take 2 or 3 months, and they haven't seen anything. But it's really been a lot of good improvements up there, and that was the missing piece.
Okay,
So
I
if
will
you could
talk
follow
to
up,
him
that
when
would
he
be great.
returns.
Thank you.
This is really not burdensome. The distance of no parking is just one house length, 1 yard's worth. And when those cars stack up parked, yes, it does obstruct the sight line. And there are plenty of places where parents can drop off their kids along other parts of the school. So I think this is a good safety measure.
You know, and one more thing, are we going to contact, we had that new rule that we did since whatever year that was, 2016 or 17, to contact the neighbors, the impacted neighbors, to alert them to the parking restrictions that will occur near their homes. So I think we
don't do it as a rule.
I think we
We
kind
do
of-
it if you request it.
You know, I know, I kind of felt like maybe rule was a strong, not the right word, but I think.
We should do it.
Nice
I mean,
courtesy.
You
It's
don't
a
wanna
lot,
wake
it's
up
a
one
lot
morning and
of
go
extra
outside your
work. I don't
door.
know how far out you want to go, just on
I
that
think
one
we
street.
want- I think we want to go 200 feet from the farthest point. And the reason we do this now is, look, you know, we had that situation a couple of years ago. CSAC made a recommendation. The village council thought it was a good thing. And before we knew what happened, there was a massive blow-up, and everyone's pointing fingers, and nobody knew that there was parking restrictions, and it got necessarily ugly. And I think that we have learned that if we just include folks in the conversation and let them know that these changes are coming, that they have an opportunity to be heard, and it.
So what we do when we do that is we introduce the ordinance, and then we send it out after it's introduced. We let them know when the public hearing is, and that they can come and speak if they wish.
I think Chris in the past also allowed people to just email comments to him.
They could do that as well.
Yeah, I think that's fine too.
Okay.
Just as long as we're notifying people, I think it's important to know.
Yeah, the point of contact for us, though, has to be letter, because we don't have people's emails, unfortunately.
Right.
So, okay.
Understood.
Next one is the Hudson Street garage wayfinding signs. The two signs are in the back. They are smaller than the huge one that was here at the last meeting.
You mean the billboard?
Yes. We also have pictures of the individuals. I do want to point out that this new parking sign actually was the creation of Mayor Knudsen. I think it's very clear because P is parking, obviously, but then what's nice is underneath it says garage. And so if you're looking for a garage as opposed to a lot, this will direct you to our garage. So I think that, we did provide you on a very hot day, both Dylan Hansen and one of our signal crew, Dave Heffernan, went out and took these pictures and were quite exhausted by the end and drenched, very, very sweaty. But it does show you what it will look like. Obviously, as I indicated in my memo, in the pictures, the arrow is straight. It won't always be straight. It may point to the left, it may point to the right, depending where it is on the intersection. But it gives you an idea of the size in relation to the actual intersections, which I think is good. Our recommendation would be the smaller of the two. The bigger one may become too much sign pollution, but this is up for discussion.
I mean, I think in certain areas, the big one would be good. I'm just trying to think. I mean, when you look at the pictures, it's much more visible with the big one. It is. Thank you.
Which one is in the pictures?
Especially, I think
Both.
by
They
the
both are.
whole, the picture, I mean, unfortunately, they're not numbered, but by the whole, if you're coming up East Ridgewood Avenue, I think the big one, that's a good location. Can we have some big and some smaller, or
We could.
we got to do all
We could.
of one?
I think that, the recommendations here include a larger and a smaller sign. And I have some experience with signage, and I will tell you that people don't see signs. They just don't. And while the smaller sign blends in nicely, the problem is that it blends in nicely.
Right.
And people won't see it. So I think that where your plan, by the way, I do like the signs, I do like the sizes, I like both of them, and I believe that they can both be utilized, and that, so for example, here I'm looking at that first picture, and forgive me that you guys can't see this and that we don't have it, but we have a picture of two signs in front of Felina on Ridgewood Avenue on the corner of Prospect. And the smaller one, I almost can't see. The larger one is very visible, but I don't think that it is garish or overly large. And the plan calls for larger signs, and then after directing people, so for example, on Broad Street, you have to make a left on Passaic.
Right.
And then it calls for a smaller sign at the intersection of Passaic and Prospect.
Right.
And I think that that's how we can use those two signs, that
Okay.
on the major arteries, we use the larger one. On the smaller arteries that are secondary signs, where we've already led people to that secondary sign, we use the smaller one. And let's really keep in mind as we're deciding that we have an empty parking garage that is bleeding money. So we really need to up our game a little bit here so that we can let people know that it's there.
Okay, is everyone in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So that's how we'll go about doing that. That's fine. The next item is,
Before we move on from that, forgive me, are we also looking at the marketing, advertising aspect of the parking garage, which we talked about in consonance with this?
right, he's going to bring that back in September.
Great.
To give us more information about the Google ads and
Terrific. Great.
Yeah.
IT also worked up the link for parking information, and we shared it with the Chamber of Commerce, and their hits went up enormously. So it's really working over there.
Right. Okay. The next item is parking regulations for the parking lot out here. During the school year, the main parking lot is many times used by Ridgewood High School students. They park here early in the morning, and they're here all day, sometimes till 4:30, depending if they have after-school activities. So during the school year also is when our community center really picks up with exercise classes, knitting, painting, meditation, all sorts of courses, as well as the library holds courses during the day. And it becomes very difficult to find parking out here after about 9:30 in the morning. And if those 12 cars were not 12 to 15, it depends on the time of the year, how many kids are driving. But if there weren't that many cars parked there all day long, that would be 12 or 15 extra spaces for people who are coming to do municipal business or walk around Vets Field or bring their children to the playground. So what we would like to do is to have an ordinance which would restrict the parking in this lot from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. to people who are, those who are doing business or working in Village Hall, patronizing or working at the Village Library, or physically utilizing the walking path or playground at Veterans Field. And other than that, they will not. The students in the past have always parked at Graydon South and also at the Graydon parking lot because Graydon Pool is no longer open. And so what we've done in the past is put flyers onto their windshield saying, do not park here, please park at Graydon South or at Graydon parking lot. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some continue to park here. They prefer this lot for whatever reason. And the chief of police said, well, if we have an ordinance to back us up, we can certainly enforce it a lot better. We could put up additional signage saying that during these hours, this is what we expect to be parking here. And so that's my recommendation and the chief's recommendation so that we can enforce that. Obviously, we would not issue summonses immediately. If they were parked there, we would give them a warning and say, you shouldn't be parking here. The signs say that. We have an ordinance. And then after that time, if they would continue to park in this lot, they would receive a summons.
Yeah, I've definitely been annoyed seeing kids at 3:15 piling into their cars, and I thank the chief of police for bringing this up.
I'm just curious, how do we know that those cars will belong to high school students? And that's not my issue. That's an enforcement issue as opposed to the librarian or the person who works in Village Hall.
One, we have cameras. Two, we have employees who come in early and see them all gather together and walk to the high school together. So, and as Councilwoman Perrin mentioned, see them coming back at 3:15 and leaving from Village Hall altogether. So, again, if we continue to see, and the police department obviously can also check if they see a car consistently here, they can run a license plate just to check and see if it is an employee. And I have to say the police department usually knows the employees' cars. And, for people who are coming and going, even if they're at the library, they might be here for, 3 hours maybe doing research or something, that's fine. But, to be holding up these spaces for high school students that can park in other lots
and
nearby.
I think that that's really the key issue is there is other parking for them.
Correct.
So as long as there's other parking for them, I'm on board.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll introduce that next week. Mr. Rooney, if you could come up. Thanks. The next item is the review of the financial statements for June 30th, 2022.
Good evening. So I provided you with three funds, budgeted funds, financial statements, the current, water, and parking. If you have any questions, please stop me. I'll just give you an overview of where we are for the 6 months ended June 30th. For the general fund revenues, our local revenues are slightly ahead of what we projected for the 6 months. That's primarily due to the influx of recreation fees and permits kicking in. Our state aid, we have yet to see any money for that. Normally it starts coming through in August. That's about $1.8 million. The other special items, which are one-time revenues, were about 84% of what we anticipated. That's primarily due to cash that's been in-house that we're allowed to move over to our current fund budget. And our overall revenue stream for general fund is about 52% of what we budgeted for 6 months. The appropriations are pretty much on target. There's a few departments that are slightly over. That would be insurance, and that's due to the timing of having to pay premiums for the full year. The public safety is flat. Public works flat. Health and welfare flat. So any of those that are over are usually because of the timing of payments that needed to be made or encumbrances for expenses that are anticipated for the year. So overall, again, it's not a cash flow basis, but from an encumbrance basis, we're probably about 60% of budget, but still well within our guidelines. The water department, we're showing rents to be approximately 45% of what we anticipated. Again, that's timing of billings, but as you're aware, if prolonged water restrictions incur, that could jeopardize the revenue stream as we know it. Water rate increases and PFAS treatment billings are in process. Most of them will not be kicking in until July. So overall, we're about 44% of what we anticipate in water. Appropriations, again, some of these accounts do not have encumbrances made for everything that we would anticipate, so we're roughly at about 37% of what our budgeted appropriations are through June. For parking, we're at 50% of what we anticipated, which is very encouraging. I will say every day I pass the train station, I start to see one or two more cars, so I'm optimistic that we're going to start showing some increase when school gets back in session. So overall, we're at 50% of what we'd anticipate at this time of year. And from an appropriation standpoint, our spending is roughly at 44%. So again, all within what we would anticipate for this time of year. Any questions?
For parking revenues, we're not getting any more parking revenues from the park and ride, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
But we also don't have the expenses that we had there, such as paving, striping,
Plowing.
landscaping, plowing, right?
Yeah, there's an offset.
Good point.
And actually, Bob, I just wanted to, Councilman Vaggianos made a comment earlier about the garage, bleeding funds, or I don't remember the exact term, but we always look at this as a utility, and I was hoping that you would just expand on that a little.
So the utilities, parking revenue comes in from all the sources, from all the lots, from the streets, and that's how we evaluate the revenues. We don't break it down just for the garage as far as being able to account for expenses. So the debt service that's required to be paid on the bonds that we issued to build the garage are covered by the revenues from the whole village and not just what we receive for that garage. So that's the concept of the utility.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, and I'm aware of that.
No, and I actually didn't say it for your I actually said it because when you made that statement, the viewing public heard that, and I thought it was really important to clear that, and with the understanding that the parking utility is a whole, not individual pieces. So thank you.
I probably get 2 questions a week coming from the public to ask me about that. And again, it's a concept that, you don't really focus on. You focus on that piece of property, but it's the whole thing.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. The next item is the Municipal Alliance Grant. So there are 2 for this. One is that we did not anticipate this revenue when we did the budget, so it allows us to add the grant revenue and then the appropriation to the 22 budget. And then the second resolution permits the village to transfer funds from the Recreation Department, other expense, to matching funds for this grant. And as a reminder, the Municipal Alliance Grant provides funding for drug and alcohol awareness programs for the community.
Anyone?
Okay,
Is the dollar figure supposed to be in the beginning of the resolution, where it says miscellaneous revenues on the first page, or is that waiting for the grant to come in? Is it intentionally blank, is my question.
It's saying it's approving the insertion from that area to the general appropriations.
So it's an add-on to the budget, revenue and appropriation in like amount for the grant, and then there's a movement of our matching fund from one line item in the budget to that grant.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
We're good, Pam?
So
Yes.
if we could go to 612, I'm sorry, C12, the crossing guard services, because Mr. Rooney's going to stay for that, and I'll have Chief Lucky come up as well. Just in case there are financial questions about it, I want Mr. Rooney to be here. So, as you know, we went out for bid for the crossing guard services, and we received no responses to the first bid that went out, although we had 2 plan holders. So then we went out for bid again, and this time there was 1 plan holder, and we received a bid package. This was from All City Management Services of Santa Fe Springs, California, not to exceed $494,511. This is for 31 morning and 31 afternoon school crossing guard posts for the school year. This is a 31.4% increase. Part of that is the higher salaries at $22 an hour, just like our lifeguards and various other places. It's difficult to find people to work. Again, why, I don't know, but it is. This is ultimately funded to the police department budget. So that is our one quote. As a reminder, they run basically the entire program. They hire the guards. They make sure that they get coverage if there are no guards. If they can't get coverage, they then do notify our police department so that we can provide either perhaps one of our PEOs or a police officer if need be at that post. But the nice thing for us is that we are not providing them with uniforms or materials or having to have the administrative work of trying to shuffle guards and figure out where they are. And so that is our recommendation, is to award this for the 1 year. We have a 2nd year option. I think we're going to look at it more closely, later in this fall and, during the winter, go out earlier for proposals perhaps, and just see where we're at that time. And to see, if this is the best plan for us still going forward.
I definitely had a financial question about this, because I remember when we first did it, it was, as Heather said, I think basically it was a wash between, we weren't saving any money or anything like that, but The benefit was that we had somebody else manage it, and it's somebody called out or didn't show up for work, you'd have to put a police officer there, so they couldn't be doing police stuff. So we had this other outfit come in, and now we don't have to worry about providing police officers because they have everything covered. But at what point, because I think that the cost at that point was like $375,000 or $380,000, I think, when we first did this the first year, and at that point it was a wash. So I think next year it went up a little bit more, and then went up a little bit more, and now we're looking at almost $500,000. So then my question is, at what point is it more expensive to run the crossing guards through the outside company versus going back to something similar, maybe different or revised from what we had in the beginning? Like, at what point is it more expensive to do this versus do it in-house?
So right now, we're probably at break even. If we were to take this on ourselves, calculating the cost of what we're proposing that they charge or they're allowed to get for their crossing guards, and the cost for equipment, the cost for training, fringe benefits, unemployment, when we wrap it all together, we're probably break even. So just to go back to remind you, we had an issue where we wanted to make sure we put police officers on the street.
Mm-hmm.
By doing so, by hiring this company, we're able to do that. And we did ultimately have a pretty good savings in overtime. And that sort of helped us out here. Right now, the fear is, again, this break even is, it's assuming that we're going to incur overtime because we're going to have to pull officers in, or they're going to have to extend the time that they're working. And there's going to be vehicle usage that we're going to have off the streets now. They're going to be sitting in the corners. So when you wrap that all together, you're probably at a break even. So going with this company for a year may give us time to reevaluate other processes or how else we can come up with a cost savings. But I think at this point in time, in the stage that we're in, I think it's pretty important that we move forward with what we have.
All right. Yeah, that would just be a suggestion moving forward, because it's a pretty big jump this year, and in my mind, eventually it's going to get to the point where it's hiring an outside company is going to be more expensive, even with the equipment and the training and the potential for police overtime and everything else. So in the future, look at maybe find out what that is, or get an idea of where that break-even point is, because then the council at that point would have to make a real decision on what to do. But
Sure.
If it's break-even right now, and again, there's the benefits of keeping police officers doing police things, then that is a benefit that we should continue to incur.
Right.
Was All City the contractor before?
Yes,
How well
they've
did they
been from the
perform?
beginning. They
Okay.
always have been.
How well have they performed?
So really, up until this year with COVID, the prior 4 years that we've been with them, we really have had no issues. They're very good at, very good at staying on top of their people. They're constantly recruiting. They have a good local manager right now that coordinates all of the guards. So it has been a very positive working relationship with them.
Gotcha.
Actually, we were the recipient of an award for this, and it was really right. You and I got we accepted it. So it was really a moment of really good policy and good implementing. So it's wonderful. But I agree with the deputy mayor. We're in a position now, and I wasn't part of that was because some of the laws changed about pay rates and things. I thought there was some impact with that as well. So I think we have to continue to evaluate it. I agree. We were the first in the state to do it, which is what we got the award for.
Yeah.
There are other towns and municipalities within the state that
Right.
have also now come on
Right.
with this company. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have to keep in mind, we spend, the last couple of months, we've spent a lot of time talking about getting staffing in this $20 an hour pay range. And if this company can bring people in, despite the fact that the $118,000 number is initially eye-popping, when you look around, this is the new normal. And nobody, believe me, that number jumped out on the page on every councilman sitting here. But given the current climate, and especially with your assessment, Bob, that it's still a break even. I mean, can think for just a moment if we have to do with crossing guards what we've been doing with lifeguards. In fact, is there a lifeguard company that we could find who could do this for us? Because this is really, this is the issue for everyone these days.
So just a quick question out of curiosity. Say that, somebody calls in sick, whatever, they can't get anybody to fill in and we have to get a police officer. Do we get a credit on that time period? What happens?
So it's really just a matter of not billing us for that time period.
Okay.
Obviously, if something became a chronic issue, it would be discussions, but for the most part, I know there have been occasions where crossing guards got in a car accident on the way in, and it may be last-minute coverage.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move forward with that award. We will continue to evaluate it and do it, as I said, this fall and in the winter, so that we can really take a good look at it and decide what to do going forward. The next item is, so I think, Mr. Rooney, I think everything that you're involved in is done, so thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. Thank you.
The next is the SCADA system, I'm sorry, the laser feature upgrades for IT. I have Dylan Hanson here. He's going to let you know. Laserfiche, for those that don't know, it actually scans our documents, and then there's OCR, so you can look, type in a phrase or a word, and it will bring up all the things that have that word in it. So, for example, in the village clerk's office, we've gone back to the year 2000 with our ordinances, resolutions, agendas, minutes, and contracts. So it is beneficial for us in the office because it allows us, if we get Oprah requests for things, to be able to locate those documents quickly. It also will be beneficial for the public as we're having a public portal where they can also search those types of things. So, go ahead.
You've answered everything.
Well, yeah, but you got.
So this is going to be for 10 additional licenses. Currently, we have 15, so it allows 15 people at the public at one time to search through resolution and ordinances on the portal, and after there's 15 people, you get an error message. So this hopefully alleviate that message in the future. It's going to allow us up to 25 people at one time for right now. If we need more in the future, we might purchase more, depending on the usage.
And it will also allow additional departments to be able to go on and do Laserfiche as well. We have done it with some of the departments, but we're now, I know finance uses it for their purchase orders and requisitions, but we're looking to bring on building and health, I believe. Yeah. And so it's an award of a contract under state contract to SHI of Somerset, New Jersey. It's not to exceed $24,256.50, and it's paid for through the IT capital account, right? Okay. And any other questions? Okay. The next item is the cooperative purchasing for fencing at Graydon Pool. So it's a award contract. I'm sorry, I skipped the SCADA system. Yeah. So this is a recommendation to award to the sole source Emerson Process Management, Power and Water Solutions, Inc. of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, not to exceed $35,619.57 for 3 years. This is paid for Water Pollution Control Facility capital account. As I had mentioned last month, the Water Pollution Control Facility SCADA system is being upgraded, and this is the, what's it called? The software support contract. And so that's what this cost is for.
Questions?
Questions? Okay, now we can move on to the fencing. So this is award of contract under county contract to Fox Fence of Clifton, New Jersey, not to exceed $22,649. Funding is actually from the 2019 capital budget. This is replacement of the current fence and purchase and installation of a 2-rail black locust split rail fence and 1 pedestrian open gate along Linwood Avenue, and it will actually be extended just a little bit around the corner to Northern Parkway to the exit from the Graydon lot. So it will extend to that area. The other fence is old, worn, and rotting, so we need to replace it.
We've never actually had a gate there.
Sorry.
Sorry. I'm sorry, my microphone wasn't on. There's not a gate there now.
It's not a gate, it's where it opens for that pathway that goes
Right.
from the
It's
sidewalk.
just an opening.
Correct, that's what it is. It's not an actual, I know, I asked about the gate too. It's not a gate, it's a gate opening.
Okay, so that's probably more wood or something.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. Okay, so the next item is car cameras for the police department. The current car cameras for the police cars have passed their useful life. They've done research, the police department. It was determined that the Fleet 3 system by Axon would be best for the police department. The system will integrate with the current body-worn camera system, and the current redaction package will work with the system as well. This system is under the State of New Jersey contract, total cost of $212,160. It includes the installation in 17 vehicles, a warranty, and complete equipment refresh after 5 years. So again, it's award of a contract under state contract to Axon Enterprise, Inc. of Scottsdale, Arizona. And once the PO is issued, the delivery is in 12 months. So this time next year, we should have those cameras.
How old did you say the WatchGuard system that we have now is?
Chief Lucky, you want to come up?
I gather it's over 5 years old.
Oh, yes.
I actually think that system is closer to 10 years old at this point.
Wow.
They've been linked together for quite some time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have one other, I think, for police. So we'll go to C13, which is for ammunition. And so this one, hold on. If I can find it, we'll do it. It's award of contract under state contract. Hold on, I'm getting there. To Eagle Point Gun / TJ Morris & Son, New Jersey, of Thoroughfare, New Jersey, not to exceed $35,790.69. The funding is in the police department operating budget. This is used for the police department's mandatory training and duty use. Are there any questions? Okay.
If you don't use ammunition, because I don't see our police using their ammunition in the field much, if you don't use ammunition, can you use it the next year, or does it have a sell-by date?
No, we can use it.
It's good.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Okay, I'll now have Chief Judge come up. We have various resolutions to purchase items for the fire department. So the first is awarding a contract under cooperative purchasing for the firefighter bailout system. This is to the lowest responsible quote to Strategic Safety Dynamics of Smithtown, New York, not to exceed $25,959.75, and the funding is in the fire department capital account. If you look at the last page, it shows you what a bailout system looks like, because I had no idea. So I asked that for my own information. One gets clipped onto a window, like a window sill, and the other part with the red is like kind of like a what's that called?
Carabiner?
Yeah, and you push it down, and then it ratchets you down slowly out of the area. And it could also be put on, what else, Chief Judge?
So, yeah, it's attached to yourself.
Thank you.
These are better for a window. You can tie off tools and get them stored. It all started back in 2005, Black Friday, Black Sunday. My multiple FEMA firefighters died. There's a window. Only 2 had some rope systems. 1 died immediately. 4 died from injuries. And then they started the bailout system to support firefighters. And we got ours on a grant 10 years ago. But unfortunately, manufacturer guidelines, 10 years later, they are no longer. And the ones we currently have, I would say, we're not the best.
John, forgive me, could you speak into the mic so that we can hear you, but I don't know if everyone else.
Is it on? It sounds like it's not on. Is there
The green light should be on.
Hello?
Oh,
So much better.
There we go.
Oh, so much better.
My apologies. So yes, the bailout system and ours are at manufacturer end of life. And even now, it's a good 4+ months to get them and then retrain the trainer so they could train the whole department on how to use these, which is included in the costs as well.
So the next item is awarding a contract under state contract for 11 sets of turnout gear to Strategic Safety Dynamics of Smithtown, New York, not to exceed $34,837, and the funding is in the fire department capital account.
And turnout gear is...
So this is mainly the bunker pants and the coat that we wear to go into a fire. Technically, the term can include your helmet, gloves, hood, boots.
Got it.
All that stuff.
Okay. The next item is purchasing an ambulance. This is under the Houston-Galveston Area Council Co-op. This is to Firefighter 1 of Sparta, New Jersey, not to exceed $235,402. This funding was in the fire department capital account. This will replace ambulance 11, which is a 2002 ambulance with over 57,000 miles. The low-end replacement for ambulances is 5 to 8 years, and the high end is 14 years. This ambulance is actually 20 years old, and there is a 20-month build time, so this ambulance truly needs to be replaced.
So we got our money's worth out of this one. Well, by the way, what do we do with the old ambulance?
So options. Right now, not sure what the option for this exact one would be, only because 2 years out to see where we're at with it. Sometimes we might want to keep it in town, take out some of the insides, and people use it for a utility vehicle, transport of that nature. I've seen private businesses buy them for also just using it as a work truck or something at that point also.
I was going to say, I mean, we can sell it, right?
We can, ideally, we could sell it. I don't want to say what we can in 2 years from now, but ideally, yes, we can sell it for some revenue.
It's not going to go in the trash.
Correct.
Good.
Yeah.
How many ambulances will the village have once we buy this one?
With selling 11, we'll have 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it'll remain at 3.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because we are getting rid of the one, so.
And there's days we're doing 3, and even the other day we had 4 calls at the same time.
Right.
And it's going to take about 20 months to get this?
We're hoping that that can speed up, but that's, I think, our worst case scenario right now, what we were quoted, so.
The next one is the power load for the ambulance. So as part of the purchase, the Stryker power load is being purchased separately and is actually going to save us money. It's a powered system that contains a stretcher fastener, which will improve safety for both the operator and the patient. It does this by supporting the stretcher for the entire loading and unloading process. It's currently in all 3 of our village ambulances, and studies have shown that a significant reduction in stretcher-related injuries for both staff as well as improved patient care. So we're going to buy it directly from the manufacturer, utilizing the Bergen County Co-op, and we save $3,750 by doing so. So it's awarding a contract under county contract to Stryker Medical of Chicago, Illinois, not to exceed $24,164.20, and this is under the fire department capital account.
This is for the new ambulance.
Correct.
Same
So
thing,
if
it's just we priced it separately because we found we were able to save money going directly to the manufacturer.
But I thought I heard Heather just say we have it currently in 3 ambulances, correct?
Correct.
But we're getting rid of the 3rd ambulance.
Correct.
So we can't use that, the one that's in the 3rd ambulance?
Potentially. So it's already maybe about 8 to 10 years old. We're going to have a brand new ambulance to install that in as well. When it does come, we'd have to take it out of 11 and put it out of service to be sent to the dealer to install as well.
Okay.
So then we'd be down the ambulance for however long that time period would be.
Right.
Plus, in the end, if it does get sold off, potentially you could sell it for revenue as well at that time.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, the next item, if we could jump to item E5, because this is also Chief Judge. This is a resolution to authorize a submission for a grant through the American Rescue Plan firefighter grant funds for $75,000 for firefighting turnout gear and the Scott Air Packs. The village will provide at least a 5% match for this. Any questions?
Any questions? I just actually have to go back to that striker thing again.
Yeah, of course.
How old did you say they were? Because I thought that we just purchased those for the first time a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think I'll check the date. I'll get back to you
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't think they can be that old, because I remember, that's the one that does the auto lift, so it helps, right?
We've gone through a couple different ones. This is the full
Right.
attachment.
I thought those were just purchased just a couple of years ago, so maybe you want to check how old that
I will. I'll
actually
get you a date.
is.
Yep,
Okay,
no
good.
problem.
All right, sorry about that. I didn't mean to go back. It just struck me.
That's okay. Were there any questions about the grant?
No.
Okay. So, thank you, Chief Judge. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
The next item is the 11C11, awarding a contract under county contract to Campbell Foundry of Harrison, New Jersey, not to exceed $39,400. Funding is in the streets capital account. This will allow us to replace the manhole frames and covers on roads being resurfaced by Bergen County, and we also need to replenish our storage of covers and frames. We are purchasing watertight ones that will help reduce the sanitary sewer collection system inflow and infiltration problems.
Any questions about the manhole covers?
Okay. The next item is under policy, review of the proposals for the Municipal Energy Aggregation Program. So, Councilwoman Perrin, did you want to speak to
Yes.
that? Okay.
So we have 3 bids from different companies to be the consultant or the broker for the energy aggregating program, which we call in Ridgewood, encouraging alternative green energy for Ridgewood. And the consultant will be paid by the third-party supplier, and the consultant's job is very important in terms of guiding us when to go into the market, when to post our request for proposals, evaluating the bids that come in. And so we thought that interviewing them might be something the council wants to do. In our subcommittee, the Green Ridgewood subcommittee, we felt that the 2 of them were very good offers, and that is from Good Energy and from Gable Associates. The third one we were less impressed with, and so the subcommittee's suggestion is that council interview the two consultants. Gable Associates has worked with Ridgewood before, and they came here and spoke with us about energy aggregating back in 2021. I seem to recall we were still on Zoom, answered a lot of questions. They have been at the forefront of energy aggregating and renewable energy aggregating in New Jersey. The principals of that company worked for the Board of Public Utilities. They've been influential in Trenton, and if you want to call an expert at a trial, these are the guys you bring on as a witness. Good Energy is all over the country, and they also have an impressive background. The committee felt that their approach was perhaps a little more customized for Ridgewood. But I have to say that when I took a training, a webinar about energy aggregating, and there were people from all different towns in New Jersey, people were saying, Gable Associates is who you want to get. And I have a hard time forgetting that. So if you want, you don't have to interview these people because they're professionals. But I think you always learn something when you interview applicants. And so I'm presenting this to the council to make a decision with or without interviewing.
First, Pam, I want to thank you for the countless hours and the time you put into this. I mean, this has been a passion project for you, and I think that the residents are gonna bear fruit from this. And I also agree with your recommendation that we interview these people. I need to know more, and I have questions. And a resident came tonight and asked some pertinent questions, and I'd like to ask some of those questions also. So I go along with that recommendation.
Mm-hmm. If we're going to interview, I would like to interview all three. No?
Good for me.
Yeah, works for me too.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I guess we'll just have to.
So everyone agrees that you want to interview? Yes? Okay.
Yeah, all three.
The subcommittee also is working on a list of questions that the council could use during the interview process, so I'll pass that along to you.
Okay, so either we could do it on a night of a regular work session or do a special meeting. So, I guess you probably need at least an hour per consultant to, have them do their presentation. I would limit it to 10 minutes or, 12 minutes for a presentation, and then mostly questions from the council. And then we would go from there. So unless we have a very short work session, I would think probably a special meeting would be better. Maybe we could meet like on a Monday night sometime, because, the courtroom is available usually on Monday, and other village meetings are not held then.
Yes.
So what I'll do is get some dates out to you in September to do this, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Okay?
Did I understand, and I forget her name, she's from Green Ridgewood?
Beth Kreller.
Beth, yes, thank you. That she said doing this, there was a kind of time is of the essence issue. If I recall in her comments, she indicated that, and I don't remember exactly the reasoning behind her statement. It could be the time of, I believe there's like auctions on energy. She did say time is of the essence. So what is her, in terms of time frame, what did that mean?
That means on bid day, we all have to be ready to make a decision.
Right.
They make the consultant gives you information the week leading up to bid day. And the reason time is of the essence is because you get more competition if you are taking bids and making a decision on the same day, because as time expands, well, then the market changes, and the bidders need to know the time period they're bidding. I'm not explaining this quite well.
That's all right.
But
It's fine. I think maybe we'll just do a little outreach and get a little clarification on
Yeah.
that. But I think I got it in all of that, but I think I understood what she was talking about, but I just wanted to be clear that is what she said.
And I think, forgive me if I'm interpreting this wrong, but I think what she was saying is that, and what you're saying is that when our consultant tells us now is the time to get in, we have to be ready to pull the trigger immediately.
Right.
And that's what she means, I believe, by time is of the essence.
Yeah.
Not that we have to choose a consultant quickly.
I just didn't remember what she said was
Yeah,
time is of the
and
essence.
again, I think that's my
I remember her
recollection.
saying that, and I think she was speaking very quickly
Yep.
because the clock was running out on her. Okay. Moving
Okay.
on.
The next one is a proposed stop sign on Al-Anon Road. So it's actually, it's to improve safety for motorists using Al-Anon Road. It is due to the fact that vehicles using East Side Avenue as a cut-through to avoid the traffic light at Grove and South Pleasant Avenue, they don't exercise sufficient caution at that intersection. The village engineer conducted a field examination of the intersection area. Motorists heading north on East Side approaching Al-Anon has a poor line of sight to the left at the traffic heading eastbound on Al-Anon Road. So a new stop sign is being recommended on East Side Avenue on the north side at Al-Anon Road.
Okay.
The next item is other stop signs. Again, the village engineer conducted a field examination of the Greenway Road area. At westbound Greenway reaches Knollwood, the grade of Greenway reduces the sight lines of traffic on Knollwood. Westbound Greenway would benefit from a stop sign at Knollwood. Yield signs are used on Highland Avenue's approaches to Greenway Road to regulate traffic. These yield signs have not been memorialized by an ordinance. So the village engineer is recommending Highland Avenue, both sides at Greenway Road, and Greenway Road westbound at Knollwood Road for stop signs.
Okay, any questions?
The next one is the contract that we do every 2 years with the county. This is so that the county roads get plowed concurrently with the local roads, and it's a shared services agreement. And we do get paid by the county at $115 per hour. So it's a resolution for the 2-year period, 2022 to 2024 snow seasons, and authorizes the execution of the agreement as well.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. This is the rate that we get paid
From the county.
And this is the rate that we got paid last year?
It actually has been increased. I think it was 110 maybe, but it has been increased this year.
Got it. And do we make money on this, or is this a break even? Do we
What
lose
it
money?
really does, it allows the county roads to be plowed, like I say, concurrently with our roads. And otherwise, if we had to wait for the county to get here, who knows when they'd get here?
And I gather this is not a negotiable price.
No, unfortunately. It's a given.
In which case, I am good.
Okay. Okay. The next is a memorandum of understanding. The Bergen County Department of Health receives grant money to be the lead agency for offering services to local health departments. There is no fee, but it is required service under the public health practice standards. The memorandum of understanding contains agreements for services regarding a comprehensive cancer control plan, New Jersey Cancer Education and Early Detection Program, tuberculosis control and public health emergency preparedness program. So again, the resolution is to authorize the execution of this memorandum of agreement.
Okay. No questions? Moving on.
Okay, the next one is the Department of Public Works auction. So these are vehicles and equipment from various departments, declaring them surplus equipment because they are no longer mechanically viable. Many have extensive corrosion and expensive repair needs, and it authorizes them to be auctioned on Gov Deals.
Any questions?
The final is the 2023 Village Council meeting dates. We set these now because we have to have them for the calendar, and also when I go out for my minute proposal, I have to put them in the specifications. All of our work sessions are on the first and fourth Wednesdays of the month. Our public meetings are on the second Wednesday of the month. The only one that's in conflict is April 5th, which is a work session, which is the first night of Passover. So the recommendation is to move the work session to Monday night, April 3rd. Other than that, it follows the usual schedule. In July and August, and November, December, we have only 2 meetings, which is the first and second Wednesdays of the month. Any questions? I also would like to set September 9th as the date for Coffee with the Council in 2023, and that's the usual time. It's the Saturday after Labor Day. Okay, great. So the last thing is a review of next week's meeting. We have 2 proclamations declaring September Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month and declaring September National Preparedness Month. We have the swearing in of 2 of our police officers, Christopher Schuman and William Malone. There are no ordinances at this time for introduction for Ridgewood Water or public hearings, no resolutions for Ridgewood Water. The introduction of ordinances includes restricting parking for improvement of site obstructions on Morningside Road and California Street, amending Chapters 265 for stop signs on Eastside Avenue at Alanine Road, amending Chapter 265 for vehicles and traffic for establishing stop signs Highland Avenue at Greenway Road and Greenway Road at Knollwood Road. The one that's on the draft is not going to be ready until September. I would like to recommend that we do a special public meeting to be able to introduce it on the 7th of September and then adopt it at a special public meeting at the 28th. The only reason being that this way it could be effective October 18th. If we wait for our usual public meetings, it would not be adopted until the second week in October, meaning it would not be effective till November 1st. And our thought process with this was to be able to have these shared loading zone 15-minute meter spots in effect for a while before the holidays, because then there are additional traffic and, maybe confusing. At least it would be an additional 2 weeks that people would be able to get used to it. So with your permission, we will schedule that for introduction, discussion, and then introduction at a special public meeting on September 7th. The other one is the vehicles and traffic here at the Municipal complex and parking lot, and then the parking spaces for the new Ridgewood Water headquarters. The public hearing is for land use and development for window displays for vacant storefronts. This is actually going to be continued to September. We have advertised a public hearing, so we'll hold a public hearing for anyone who wants to do so. However, the planning board hasn't met recently, so they have to review it and then get back to us. So they'll be able to do that prior to our September meeting. As far as resolutions go, we have awarding a contract for the firefighter bailout system, awarding a sole source contract for the SCADA system software support, awarding contract under county contract for purchase and installation of fencing at Graydon Pool parking lot, awarding contract under county contract for the striker power load. You know what, we'll take that off for now and just see what the chief finds out. We could always do that after, the ambulance isn't coming in for 20 months, so we can take that off for now. Awarding the contract under county contract for the manhole frames and watertight covers, awarding contract under state contract for Laserfish upgrades, award contract under state contract police car cameras, also police ammunition, also firefighter turnout gear, award contract under Houston Galveston Area Council Cooperative ambulance, authorizing the shared service agreement for snow plowing with Bergen County, authorizing the execution of the memorandum of understanding with Bergen County for the health various programs, authorizing the submission of an application for the American Rescue Plan Firefighter Grant, Chapter 159 to accept the Bergen County Department of Health Services Municipal Alliance Grant Program, and then authorizing the correction to the 2022 budget for the transfer of funds to provide for the Municipal Alliance Grant Matching Funds, declaring property surplus, various vehicles and equipment, and then the final one is appointing members to the Central Business District Advisory Committee. This is to extend their terms to December so that, and again, they'll be for their term, but it'll expire in December so that when the new council does take office, they will have the opportunity to appoint those members. That's all I have.
So just on that striker, I'm just trying to go back to it, it's a big scroll. If we pull that, are we compromising the pricing that we're getting?
I'll
Maybe-
ask the chief. It's under a cooperative, it's under county.
Because
so-
we could always adopt it and then take it back.
Well, that's true, too.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, if
okay.
because why wait another month if we're going to find out maybe the following, maybe
Okay, that's fine. I'll find out, he may know when that contract expires, and if it doesn't, then we could wait the month. If not, then we'll keep it on either way. Okay.
So everybody's good with that agenda? All right. With that, we're going to go back to public comments, not to exceed 5 minutes per person. Please remember to state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Ann Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I just wanted to say a couple of things about Graydon. First of all, the app is really cool. I just love it. It's really great, and I'm very happy that the hours, which are normally cut in August, are not going to be cut. I'm guessing that's because we have more guards. I do think it's too bad that it still has to end at 6 o'clock at night. We heard a number of people talk about that here and also on social media. I didn't hear whether that week that it's been closed in August is still going to happen. For a few years, the week in the lead up to Labor Day weekend, it was closed, which is really horrible because everybody's summer camps are over and everybody's back home, so I don't know about that. If maybe that could be answered after public comments. And the other thing is, I wanted to ask something that I've asked a few years in a row, not last year, whether after Labor Day, when the pool is closed but there's still water in it, if we could have one dog day at Graydon. I just think it's the world's greatest idea for dog lovers. The dogs would have such a good time. It's done with the people. You don't have to worry about anything like that. Ridgewood dog owners are very responsible people. I think it would be just a wonderful activity. The other thing I wanted to say is something about the crossing guards. There was some comparison made, not exactly a comparison, but between crossing guards and lifeguards. They're both very important. They're both, looking out for people's lives. But I happen to be very good friends with a person who was a crossing guard here in town. I know the village attorney is equally good friends with that person. It is the most incredibly dangerous job you can imagine. She was almost killed so many times by idiotic drivers speeding past her, honking at her, giving the finger, making all kinds of, like verbal threats at her. Not only that, so not only is it nonstop threat to her life, besides the fact that she was protecting children, it's a split shift, so that really stinks. You get up, you come in, you work, then you go home, then you have to go back again. Depending on whether you're doing elementary school, it might be 3 times in a day, or else maybe 2 times in the day. So that's not the best. And it's also, you have to work in every weather. I mean, this woman, who no longer works as a crossing guard, she had the most amazing array of clothing, depending on whether it was sub-zero and freezing rain or whether it was 120 degrees. So crossing guards really deserve a tremendous amount of respect, and I'm glad that they're getting well paid because it's a dangerous job and it's an important one. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ann.
Good evening again. Boyd A. Loving, 342 South Irving Street. Just a couple of comments about Mr. Calby's remarks here this evening concerning the water conservation or lack thereof. One of the things that Mr. Calby said is that the placards that he's requiring, or the placards that should be put up, he mentioned that enforcement generally takes place at night. So my question is, you've got a placard in your window. How is that seen if enforcement takes place in the evening? Perhaps the placards need to be on a lawn, on a sign, on a little post on the lawn instead of in the window, because if they're riding around at night, unless they're shining a spotlight at your window, they're really not going to be able to see the placard. So I question why the placards are placed in the window if he's doing enforcement at night. By Mr. Calby's own admission, hot weather will cause the smart controllers to call for more water. So I still say, how does that promote water conservation? Most of us who do not have the smart controllers, there are only 292 people in Ridgewood who do, or 292 households in Ridgewood that do have it, are restricted to watering 2 days a week during certain hours. If the smart controller is calling for water because it's hot out, it could be watering 7 days a week. I don't get it. I don't understand why people who have smart controllers are allowed to water for more hours and more days of the week than the people who don't. Doesn't make sense to me at all. Doesn't promote water conservation. There are 292 households that have this in the village. Why doesn't Mr. Calby just pull the consumption rates for those people, for those households, and compare the consumption once the smart controller was installed versus what prior to what was installed? That way you'll be able to determine, are they using more water or are they using less water? Now, granted, weather conditions have to be taken into account too, but still, it would be very quick to determine of those 292 registered smart controller users whether they're using more water or less water when their system went in. Rain sensors, by the way, are not unique to those with smart controllers. By ordinance, rain sensors are required for everybody who has a system. So the fact that the smart controllers have a rain sensor makes it no different than any other automatic system. To Ms. Reynolds' comment about the parking in front of the new water department building, I don't think that parking should be allowed there after 4:30. There was a comment made about parking 8:30 to 4:30. After 4:30, that makes it even more dangerous for those people in the crosswalk. If the purpose of those spots is for people to go to the water department, if the water department closes at 4:30, there's no need to park there from 4:30 until 10 at night or anything like that. Those spaces should not be occupied in the evening due to their proximity to the crosswalk. The ordinance should be written that it permits parking from 8:30 to 4:30 weekdays only. Any other time you shouldn't be allowed to park there. At least that's my opinion on that. There was a comment made about the parking out here with the students. Question is, why did the students park here? Is it a safety issue? When my wife and I have been walking our dog around the track here, my observation is that it's mostly young women who are parking in the lot here. Do the women not feel safe walking down that path from Graydon South to the school, and are they parking here because they feel it's safer to walk on a paved path in the open near the police department as opposed to having to walk down behind that tree line? So I know that that question hasn't been asked of the students, but maybe you need to ask that question. Why are they parking there? The distance is about the same. I think it's a safety issue, that the kids feel safer parking here than they feel parking in the shaded area at Graydon. For the record, the question that the mayor asked about the anonymous emails was not answered by the manager. So we still don't know whether those anonymous emails or that anonymous email that supposedly identified 100 to 200 properties that needed sidewalk replacement, whether that was what triggered this or not. Again, I question who would benefit by sending an email identifying this construction that needed to be done. Also, for the record, when I was here last, I asked about some parking issues on North Maple Avenue, and the manager promised that they would be taken care of the next day. Neither issue was taken care of. The signs were not posted in front of NOMA, and the parking spaces in front of the water department building that have not been authorized by resolution are still available. Thank you.
So we're going to look into the anonymous email. I think that we're going to pull that, and I think the village council is entitled. What happened with that? Because I know we had a follow-up email on the NOMA issue as well.
Yeah, it was supposed to be posted that following day. I have to check and see why it was not. I didn't.
I believe there's a no parking sign anytime just beyond the cutout, but I don't see any on the within the cutout, which would be probably depending on that, I forget the distance between each sign, so if we can find out, that would be helpful.
Sure, I will.
And with that, we will take a...
I just wanted to say one
sure,
thing.
sorry.
With regard to this anonymous email, my understanding is that if a tree's going to be cut down, our arborist has examined it anyway.
I think the bigger question, and that the question that Mr. Loving is posing, is whether or not an anonymous email was triggered by someone who was going to have a benefit of then replacing the concrete, a contractor, not whether or not the trees are dead or arborist or anything. I think the bigger issue is whether or not we are reacting to an email where someone has a financial gain, and that our residents are paying the price for that or being penalized in some way. So with that, we will...
Excuse me, Susan. I don't want to spend too much time, all due respect, Boyd, on this anonymous email, because assume for just a moment we find out who it is. What do we do? It's not illegal to send that email.
No, I don't think that's the point. I think the question is, I don't think we'll know who an anonymous email is from. I think the question is, was there, it's not the details, it's was there an anonymous email? And I think that to his point, because we probably will never find out who it is from, although you probably could, but to Mr. Loving's point is, was in fact all of this triggered by an anonymous email? I think now I'd like to know as well, because I think you can make, I think it's a reasonable statement that a fellow resident didn't go around town and take all of this information. Somebody obviously did it if in fact there's an anonymous email. So I think that we just want to know what triggered all of this, and whether or not in fact there was I can't even say it, an anonymous email. You want to try that?
I'm just trying to figure out where we're going to go with
I think it's
because
just...
we came to some conclusion about how we're going to address this. So we already know what we're going to, we have a direction on where we're going with this. So isn't this now a side issue?
It is. I think that Mr. Loving has a legitimate question. Was there an anonymous email that triggered this? And I think that we should know whether or not that happened, because, again, to his point, it's not something... I mean, we have a direction. It's just a question that needs to be... It was asked, and it does require being answered.
And it's not going to take too much effort to find out.
And that's my only concern is I just don't want staff to be spending an inordinate amount of time on something that we're not going to do anything about it.
Look, staff either knows that they are responding to an anonymous email. I think it'll take exactly 2 seconds to find out whether or not there was an email that was sent to the Village of Ridgewood with 200 addresses saying all these folks need to have their sidewalks. I think it's actually a really legitimate question, and I thank you for raising it. With that, we will take a resolution to go into closed session.
Be it resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood that the Village Council meet in closed session on August 3rd, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter on the agenda can be reached, and that said closed session be held in the 4th floor caucus room of Ridgewood Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey, and be it further resolved that the matters to be discussed in closed session are limited to personnel, emergency services. These matters are allowable under NJSA 10:4-12 at sec, and be it further resolved that the minutes of this meeting shall be made available to the general public when such matters have been deemed completed by resolution of the Village Council. May I have a motion?
So,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Heather, what are these two things?